Hello and welcome, my ghouls, ghosts, and other haunted chums. Happy spooky season, friends. So, being candid, this is my second go at this script. I have been doing a lot, like way more than necessary, the work developing my spooky OCs, which I talked about last year and a few times before that. And because I have so much of the story and world figured out, my first pass at this script was a very heavy, just lore dump that was styled more like a telling of a tale in a fantasy story and less like a rambly info dump on my OCs, which this series usually is. And I guess that's not a bad thing, but listen, this thing was so boring. I was falling asleep while writing it, and I never even got far enough into it that I'd actually be talking about any of the actual characters in the story. So while it was neat trying a new style for making these videos, I'm just gonna stick to what I'm kinda almost good at and do some scripted rambles on these three characters, their backstories, and their designs. So without any more dallying, come along with me on a journey as I reintroduce to you my spooky OCs. Iggy is the main protagonist of this story, which, by the way, I don't know if I've ever said this, but I see this story in my head manifesting in an episodic, sometimes serialized cartoon about friendship and learning life lessons and whatever else. Anyway, Iggy is a bubbly, caring, friendly, and not the brightest witch from a parallel dimension. In said other dimension, they belong to a family of some of the wealthiest and most powerful witches in the world, all of which have a very strong grasp and command over their magic, which Iggy does not. Not to make this too boring like my first try at this, but if you can see in this drawing, Iggy has a bunch of beads in a necklace which in the story are known as soul stones. Yes, I stole the name from Madoka Magica. No, they are not as fucked up. That basically hold a witch's magic and allow them to channel it into spells. Now, most witches only need 2 connected stones to wield magic. One around their neck or just like on their body, and one on their wand. Although, some are gifted enough to perform magic with their bare hands. Witches with extremely powerful magic but little control over it tend to need an excessive amount of soul stones to better perform magic. Iggy's lack of control over her stone is a center of many of the conflicts in the story, which we'll get into that later in the video. But for now, let me take a minute to talk about her design. As you can probably tell, their design changed just a tiny bit from last year. I thought last year's Iggy looked a bit stuffy and a bit generic. I don't think, aside from the stockings, her personality really showed through in the design. I tried to improve on that this year with the purple being more whimsical and less like pale and, I don't know, ashy. Is the only word I can think to describe them. Which, no shade to last year's drawing. I love it. I have it hung up in my room. But I've had the same City watercolor palette for a while, and its colors are just kind of weak. So yeah, that. I also made the amazing idea to add a cat shape to her hat as well as a puffball at the end. Because I was scrolling through the Google image results for witch OCs, and I was just in awe and inspired by how much personality people put into witch hats. With that being said, I do want to point out, I didn't see anyone put a cat shape on the hat, so yeah. I struggled a bit with the overskirt thing that was originally a cape the first time I drew Iggy that I then opted against in the years following. I changed it later, but basically my issue is that it created a bit of a strange silhouette and feeling to her design overall by being so shapeless. Okay, back to story. Back to the backstory, oh my god. I'm kind of brilliant. Anyways, as I mentioned, Iggy's family is very rich and influential, and Iggy spent most of her life very pampered and far removed from society, which in turn made her unaware of the world, naive, and in general less of an asset in her parents' eyes, especially compared to her prodigy older sister. So, as you may recall from last year's video, Iggy gets sent to Earth for research purposes. While this is still true, I'd like to retcon it just a tiny little bit. While being sent to Earth functions as a way to study Earth's magic and its people, sorry, I don't know what's going on. It also serves 2 other purposes. Iggy needs a wake-up call. She needs to spend time alone to master her magic as well as get a grip on how the world works through 2 very important life principles that we'll get into later. And thirdly, while Iggy's family are exceptional witches with power the masses can only dream about, much of their power is also derived from status and thus is directly linked to the public's perception of the family. They need to be seen as indestructible and without flaw, so when Iggy's academic as well as professional careers both look shaky at best and falling apart at worst, Iggy's counselor and parents advise the trip as a way to redeem Iggy in the public eye by making them seem not only responsible in her academics and pursuit of knowledge, but also if they're away, like in another dimension mind you, they can't publicly slip up and embarrass the family. So for the initial framing of the show, think very Star versus, and in a way My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, since Iggy also has to send weekly letters home about her findings and whatnot, just to ensure they're keeping up with it. And of course, back to reputation, their parents can always just lie about whatever was written on the letters when publishing it to the news for people to read. Okay! Well, that was a bit lengthy, but she is the protagonist after all. Now that Iggy's all done, let's move into their two Earthborn sidekicks. Now, okay, last year I said I hadn't landed on names for these two, but I actually now decided to leave their names as Pumpkinhead Guy, they call him Guy for short, and Bunny. Because, as I'll get into in a moment, these two were created by Iggy and we've established he's not the smartest. I thought it'd be cute, I don't know. Kind of in the same vein as Kid Adora naming Catra Applesauce Meow Meow, you know. In many ways, Iggy is still a kid, and I don't know, I like it, okay? And by the way, I'm gonna talk about Guy in a sec, I promise, just because I forgot and just called them a kid, Iggy is 20, okay? Okay. Now let's talk about Guy. As I said briefly, there are two principles of life Iggy has to learn over time that are mainstay themes of the story, and I thought it'd be cool if our two supporting characters for the series were embodiments of these themes, narratively as well as in their personalities. For Guy, his theme is responsibility. To explain that a bit, let's go into his backstory. After around a month of living on Earth, Iggy is growing kind of bored and lonely from not being able to fully relate to or even understand the humans surrounding her. So they look for a solution within her family's spellbook. They find a spell that can reanimate any plant or animal besides human or witch that is near death. Without any careful studying or practice of the spell, they set out to try it immediately. After all, they are just itching to make a new friend. Right outside the outskirts of the small town Iggy found residence in is a field that around fall time is just filled with pumpkins. Iggy loves pumpkins because, like cats and sweetheart candy, they are one of the few things that are relatively similar on Earth and in Iggy's home dimension, which is just called Namari, by the way. I'm just gonna call it Namari for the rest of the video. Okay, so they break into the pumpkin patch after dark and find a rotting, decaying pumpkin that's been cast out from the rest of the crop. Since it's already rotting, surely no one will care if she uses it. They recite the spell and wave their wand accordingly, but the spell doesn't work. The pumpkin remains on the ground, lifeless. Iggy, frustrated and confused, gives it another go and then quits. They take off on their broomstick and just fly home to sleep, defeated. However, her rest is cut short by the petrified screams of her neighbors. They rush to the window to see a horde of monstrous, pumpkin-headed and slimy, goopy-bodied zombies. They spit out disgusting, rotten pumpkin innards, and once a seed touches your flesh, you'd morph into one of them. Speeding this up because I do want to get back to talking about Guy. Basically, Iggy spends more time carefully reading and finds a way to turn everyone back. She turns everyone back, and then confronts Pumpkinhead Guy, who was the originator of the virus. Iggy's lack of regard and responsibility incarnate. When getting ready to cast a spell on them that had fixed the virus, Iggy recites her mother's strict rules for casting in her head. Shoulders down, feet squared, deep breaths, and precise focus. Iggy casts a spell meant to reduce or erase the target's monstrous qualities. The spell works, and as a byproduct, Guy has no mouth and no way of speaking. Since, you know, his zombo spit is how the virus was spreading, no mouth, no spit, you get it. As well as an extreme mellowing of his personality. From this episode on, Pumpkinhead Guy is the voice of reason within the group. Ironic, I know. Because of the trauma, guilt, and overall bad vibe of their first moments of consciousness, Guy is very danger adverse. They're very easily startled, and does everything in his power to stop Iggy from doing stupid things, which... oh my god, which... doesn't usually go well, but he tries, you know? Iggy loves and cares for Guy very much, but despite her loving nature towards him, Guy doesn't think very highly of himself. When I first introduced Pumpkinhead Guy a year ago, I said that he doesn't really enjoy anything and hates being alive, which... lol, which is like way too much, man. Guy has a lot of things that stand in his path. He's obviously both physically and mentally disability coded. Wait, does that grammar make any sense? But I think making him not enjoy anything would just make him way too sad of a character. I think over time he'd find more things to enjoy and love about being alive. If I had to list things they love, I'd say he loves silence, flowers, the smell of fire, writing poetry. He automatically understands English, but Iggy teaches him how to read and write so they have a form of communication. As well as music. I can really see him getting into playing piano and the guitar. And of course, although they overwhelm him and stress them out, Guy does learn to love Iggy and Bunny and wouldn't trade them for the world. Oh, and also Iggy's spell against their more monstrous qualities isn't 100% successful, and he has to take these potions Iggy makes for him to keep his symptoms down. Think eat a clawthorn type beat, you know? Okay, geez, I talked about him for a while. I don't know if you can tell, he might kind of sort of might be a little maybe my favorite of the group, although I love all of them a lot. Okay? A whole lot. Now, on to our last of the gang, Bunny. Now, while Bunny and Guy were technically given consciousness around the same time, Guy is meant to be read as older teens / early 20s. Bunny is meant to be read more 8 to 12 in age. Bunny is the byproduct of Iggy's learned responsibility from the pumpkin zombie incident. Although Iggy loves Guy and is completely content with just him as a friend, she still wants to prove that they learned and are capable of learning despite being told her whole life that they aren't. So after studying and practicing the spell in their own way, Iggy goes to give it another try. On a rabbit, she finds stuck on a wired fence bleeding out. They never intended for this to be the subject of the spell. They had actually just adopted a kitten to do it with. But Iggy isn't the type of person to turn their back on an animal, or person too, I guess, in need. She does this spell and it goes off without a hitch, and thus Bunny is born. We'll get back to Bunny's personality and story in a minute, but I want to talk about the design for a second. I think I summed it up pretty well last year, and I don't know if you noticed, I didn't change Bunny or Guy's design, like, at all from last year. But anyway, I just like goth-related fashion, and I think it'd work well and be cute for a kid character. And especially with me making them significantly more tiny this year, I think it works completely. I also think the design overall speaks to the just weird kid trope you often see in horror and spook adjacent media. I don't know if it's called weird kid trope, that doesn't sound like much, but you know the kind of people I'm talking about. Like, think the twins from The Shining. The long bits of the hair remind me of bunny ears, and overall I just really like the shape of the hair a lot. It's fun. I just like it. I don't know. To be honest, I'm having a difficult time breaking down its design just because I never really thought about it that much. It just made sense to me. Now for Bunny's life principle, or I guess concept, Iggy has to learn and get comfortable with, that Bunny is a representation of, is social interaction. That sentence did not make much grammatical sense, but we're gonna keep on moving. Bunny's personality from the jump is that of a naturally very curious kid that doesn't have much regard for how the world works around them. Minutes after Bunny is brought to life, in this human form, Iggy tries to give her a tour of their home and magic, but Bunny straight up just vanishes into thin air. Iggy and Guy do the best they can to try and find Bunny, but the two don't get very far as they are constrained to only searching in the one small area of town Iggy lives in, / Pumpkinhead Guy is able to walk around in, because, if people saw him with his whole, Pumpkinhead situation, they'd likely freak out. So pretty quickly, Iggy is responsible, I know, shocking, and resolves she's gonna have to face her fear of going around the people of the town if they're gonna find their new zombie child thing. Iggy's fear of the people mostly comes from the way they were perceived back home in Namari, for just being kind of weird and not in line with how the rest of the world's elite behaved, and also, the whole barrier of her being a witch from a different planet, and, people being just people, so there's layers to it. She was often ridiculed and looked down on by her peers, but now is aware that the life and safety of this creature is now their responsibility, and they're going to have to make sacrifices and be brave for Bunny's sake. I feel like this could play out with her either giving an overly dramatic monologue about it, or just a quick, despite my fears, it's my job to bring her back. So yeah, again, speeding this up, they go into town separately because while I think A plot is Iggy learning how to talk to people, I think a fun, cute B plot is just Guy just going around town with his only his hood to conceal his identity. Fun hijinks would ensue. You know how it is. So yeah, Iggy learns, hey, humans aren't that bad, actually. And while awkward at first, through the trial and error of talking to people, she gets a little more comfortable with it, and maybe develops a crush on a cute pharmacy worker. Who knows? They find Bunny, just in a back alley with a bunch of rats just chilling. You know how it is. Stop saying you know how it is. Up until this point, Iggy has been very lax and sweet with Bunny, but in this scene, they show a bit of sternness in confronting them about the unruly behaviors she heard about through the citizens' anecdotes. She does this while still conveying a lot of sweetness, because she thinks back on all the times their mother lectured them, and all it did was make her feel incorrect and empty, and how she never wanted any of her little guys that they're now responsible for to feel like that. Bunny apologizes, they find Guy, and the crew head home, and once they do, Iggy asks how Guy's day went, and they simply write, "I don't want to talk about it," and the episode ends. So personality-wise, Bunny is just a little guy coded. They like causing mischief, bothering Guy, and partaking in gremlin activity. They are also very quiet and often don't speak in full sentences, which really means Iggy's the only person that's in the group that's like a loudmouth, which I like that. As I stated in the last video about these guys, Bunny all around is just weird and does weird stuff sometimes. She's also very curious, and the kind of stuff that happened in its introductory episode is not an isolated incident. They're cunning to a degree and don't think his actions out very much. She's just really here to fuck around and find out. And sorry. And because they were once one, they have a special connection with animals, especially rodents, owls, and cats. I really like Bunny, and I think they're a perfect final addition to our little crew of spooky little guys. Let's see those good little guys one more time real quick, shall we? Well, that's everyone. I really love this group of characters in Iggy's story. I accidentally projected onto her like a tad. Whoops. Well, this has always more or less been their story. I have to say, I rewatched the Sin Squad's video on Monster Universe and Disability. And by the way, major shout out to Sin Squad. If you don't watch them, you totally should. I love good media analysis, and they absolutely slay at it. Anyway, in the video, I really related to the notion that was expressed about media's depiction of disability, especially ones like autism and ADHD, and how their like special magic hidden super abilities can feel kind of separating, I guess, to the audience who actually are neurodivergent or disabled when compared to how many difficulties we face in day-to-day life that people who aren't disabled don't. And mostly the notion in the video, and well, the movie that the video's about, like, that's like, because Mike wasn't able to achieve his lifelong dream because of his disability, despite his extreme amounts of hard work and dedication, doesn't mean he isn't like a successful person. And he ends up in the end with a career adjacent to the one he wanted and all. Wow, sorry if that made little sense or sucked. They said it so much better in the original video, which I highly recommend you watch. Anyway, my point is, with Iggy, she spent her life in this environment that they, despite their best efforts, could not flourish in. They were looked down on by their whole family and her peers, and was perceived for most of her life to be stupid. She is kind of stupid, but just stay with me here. And less capable of magic. What? She was no, that's just not right. I can't write. I can't read, can't write. It's a really good combination, and it works really well for me, especially as a YouTuber. Don't call yourself a YouTuber. You don't make any money. Just because she was in a space, in a system that wasn't made for them, and once she leaves it and is in a different environment surrounded by her newfound family and the space to make mistakes and learn from them, they're able to learn and grow in a way that she wasn't perceived to be able to her entire life. To me, while Iggy's story is meant to represent a lot of things, one of the most prevalent is that everyone isn't going to be able to succeed under the same pretenses. And as a society, we suck for enforcing that that's possible. I remember literally from the 6th grade all the way until my last day of high school wanting nothing more than to drop out. Just because, put simply, I couldn't learn. I don't remember a single thing from school except for my junior year creative writing class. Because, surprise, I already am good at creative writing. But the second I actually did drop out, which my mom is making me reverse, which is fun and cool. There was this freeing nature like nothing I felt in my entire life. I've learned so much more from numerous places and ways people don't think valuable information even comes from. I don't know how to end this segment or what the fuck my point is, but if you understood, hey, that's pretty cool. So that last bit was a lot more introspective than I expected this video about my silly little spook guys was gonna be, but that's okay. I hope you enjoyed your time here and that you like my beloved kids, and you know, if you really like them and you want to do any fan art of them, I mean, that'd be cool. I'm just kidding. Unless, and actually just a little aside, since I posted them on Instagram before, I got around to finishing this video. So look, I actually got some fan art there on the screen now. Wow, thanks for drawing my little guys. You should follow both these people. They're my mutuals and they're very good art good. Yeah, I'm gonna end this now. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know down below your favorite part of this magnificent season, or what you're doing to celebrate this strange year where Halloween is on the worst day of the week. Seriously, whoever made the calendar this year is gonna get a very strongly worded email from me. Or also, you know, if you want to talk to me about my characters that I just spent however long talking about, that is also very welcome. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around this spooky neck of the woods again soon. Bye-bye. Happy Halloween. Wow! Why did I do that at the end? No!